So this video has been a long time coming. Let's talk a little bit about Ubuntu running on the BQ Aquaris E4.5. Back at the beginning of February, Canonical invited me and about 30 other people to come to London to get our hands on this, the first commercially available phone running Ubuntu. If you're not familiar with it, the Aquaris E4.5 was actually an already released Android device that they re-released recently with Ubuntu. As far as the specs, it's got a 4.5-inch QHD, meaning 540 by 960, not Quad HD or anything, display, and it's right at 240 ppi. It's got a quad-core 1.3 GHz MediaTek processor, 1 GB of RAM, 8 GB of built-in storage, and a 2150 mAh battery. It's not an LTE device, so it only works on 3G HSPA+ on a very slim set of bands, mainly European bands. It has an 8 megapixel rear-facing camera that interpolates to 13 megapixels. I don't know about all that. It's capable of 1080p video, and a 5 megapixel interpolated to 8 megapixel somehow front-facing camera. So reading through that spec list, looking at it from an Android user's point of view, it's a fairly low-end device. But since it's not running Android, it's almost best to put aside those preconceived notions. My best experience with this device was the day and a half that I got to spend using it while I was in London, but that's mainly because I actually worked on 3G while I was there. Since I've been back in the States, 2G has been about the best I've been able to achieve with it since I'm on an AT&T based MVNO. When I was testing it on T-Mobile, I was informed that in order to even get it working at 2G speeds, you have to enable developer mode, you have to make some changes to it to take it from IPv6 mode to IPv4, and well, let's just say I've primarily been using this on Wi-Fi since I've been back. It's really difficult to talk about the device without talking a lot about the operating system, since it's pretty much a one-of-a-kind, at least until Meizu puts out the MX4 running Ubuntu soon. I know they're talking about it at MWC right now. So the primary interface for Ubuntu on a phone centers around the concept of scopes. Scopes are kind of like specialized feed aggregators. So instead of having a YouTube app, you might have a video scope, which can bring together videos from YouTube and Vimeo and your local videos, and it also has the potential to be expanded out to a load of other video sites as time passes. There are also branded scopes where a company can put together any sort of information that they want to share with their customers on an Ubuntu device. An example of something like that would be the Weather Channel scope, where you can see all the information related to weather data being pulled directly from the Weather Channel site as it relates to you locally. The BQ comes with a huge amount of scopes pre-installed on it, including a few that you wouldn't get if you just loaded the developer edition of Ubuntu onto your Nexus 4. Specifically though, it comes with the Today scope, which shows you things that are going on today, as you might expect. It shows you holidays, it shows you weather, recent calls and text, news, headlines, Twitter, and Fitbit information, and you can pick and choose from that what you want to see. Unfortunately, it's not really customizable beyond that, so you can't specify which news headlines you want to see, you just have to pick from the available list that they give you. The Nearby scope is also a BQ exclusive for now, but I'd say that the Meizu is going to have it as well. It brings in the weather information as well as information from things like Yelp and Wikipedia and a bunch of other sources for nearby information. It also allows you to pick options like I'm stressed, or I'm bored, or I'm hungry, and it provides you appropriate results nearby you based off of that statement. I tested this out quite a bit while I was in London, and I found it was interesting to be able to find restaurants that were nearby easily, as well as historical landmarks and nearby Wikipedia articles. Even testing this out locally, I immediately stumbled on a restaurant that's fairly close to my home that I didn't even know existed. But now I'm gonna go try it out soon, thanks to the Nearby scope. The scopes, in my opinion, are a bit of a mixed bag. The aggregator scopes are great, but currently they don't allow customization. So as an example, I can't add CNN to the news scope, or Amazon or Spotify to the music scope. And the branded scopes, well, they're pretty limited at the moment as well, to say the least. You can't actually log into the YouTube scope. It's not a YouTube branded app. So you don't see any personalized content. And if you attempt to interact with pretty much anything in the scopes, most of them just end up taking you out to the browser. As an example, if you were to look up a Yelp review, you end up having to go to the website to get the full information. If you go to the Kickstarter scope and you want to get more information about a project or actually back a project, You can't really log into it. You end up having to go back out to the browser. The upside though is that if you want to create your own scopes, there are some quick and easy tutorials out there that you can follow. People that don't even know how to code are able to start from a template and have a simple scope up and going in a very short amount of time. We're talking like 5 to 10 minutes. Now obviously, not everything works well as a scope, so there are still the concept of native apps as well. Some of these apps are simply wrappers around the browser again, unfortunately. But some of them are full-fledged, excellent apps. Ken Van Dyne has done some amazing work on the Bacon 2D engine, and there are quite a few apps that are using it now, a few games available using it, doing 2D rendered games. The majority of the apps that I played around with in the store performed quite well on this device, and even throwing tons of apps at it at the same time didn't really cause it to slow down all that much. The next thing to talk about though is gestures. The majority of the way you interact with this device is through specialized gestures. As you probably saw in my unboxing video, there's a quick walkthrough when you first start up the device to introduce you to those gestures, but it definitely takes some time to get accustomed to using them. I know when I was swiping through the scopes, I found it quite easy to accidentally flip the next app open or pull up the list of open apps instead of swiping to the next scope. I also found myself swiping through horizontal lists of things in scopes instead of swiping between scopes from time to time. Not really a big deal, again, it's just a bit of an annoyance. Seems like a bit of a UI design problem. Another pretty big issue I had with the device was the ridiculously long load times I saw, even loading local content like images and videos or opening the dialer app. I know a part of that has to do with the relative slowness of the device, but even when using the Nexus 4, I've seen that little scrolling loading wheel a little bit too often. Perhaps not for as long on the Nexus 4, but it's definitely still there. I'm hoping to get a chance to see this OS running on a newer device to see if the long load times are a result of the hardware or if it's the OS itself. I do suppose time's going to tell. Now going between portrait and landscape was a bit of an issue as well, but I've been told that they're working on that for a future update. Speaking of that, over the last month of using this device, I've really been impressed with the way that it updates. Apps are updated regularly, same as you'd find on Android, but the entire OS is updated on a fairly regular basis as well. OTA updates I am a huge fan of, and to see them coming in multiple times per month, big thumbs up there. I haven't really noticed anything substantial changing with these updates, but it is, again, nice to just see them coming in regardless. Now, getting back to a few specifics about the hardware itself, the screen, while it is pretty low resolution, still manages to make the text and images look quite nice on the device. The camera, well, on the device the images look quite nice. Unfortunately, once you get them back to a desktop or a laptop, they're not so great. I didn't mind using them to post to social media sites, and in decent lighting, some of the images actually came out halfway decent. More often than not though, they were blurry, they were muddy, they were just not great. Video quality, again, in good light, it can do some halfway decent video, but more often than not, the video was shaky and kind of blurry, and the audio was just not all that great. Battery life, I would call it middle of the road. Considering that it was only a little over 2,000 milliamp hours, I think it performed admirably. I used it while I was navigating around London, taking about 30 or so photos and a handful of videos, and again, navigating, and it dropped to about 50% after about 5 hours of usage. That doesn't sound great, but it was being used really heavily during that time, so I was kind of surprised that it survived at all. To put it bluntly, the BQ Aquaris E4.5 running Ubuntu isn't going to make mine or anyone else's top phones of 2015 list, but I don't think it's supposed to. It's the first step of a journey. Admittedly, it's a bit of a rough step, but thanks to regular software updates, some of those rough edges are going to be smoothed out over time. And you do have to keep in mind, this is a device that retails for less than $200 US, $169 US if I remember right. But even if you put the OS on a $700 phone, it's still not going to give you the same experience you'd get on Android or iOS, and you're not going to have all the same native apps. But again, that's not exactly the target market. If you're a die-hard Google user who just can't do without that hard line to YouTube, or if you've got to have the latest and greatest games the day that they come out, this OS and this device are probably not going to be for you. But if your needs are a little bit more flexible, or if you're looking to try something new, it might be worth a shot. But not if you're in the US. If you're in the US, I'd say load Ubuntu onto the Nexus 4 or the Nexus 5, or wait and see if they put it out on a device that supports US LTE bands. But that's actually going to be about all for me for today as far as this device is concerned. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns about it, definitely let me know down in the comment section below. Remember to hit the like button if you like this video, and subscribe to receive more videos as soon as they become available. Thanks so much for watching though, and I will see you next time.